All right, well, good morning and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Peter Frank and I'll be leading this training today. This is a basic introduction to the new online Lutheran Service Builder. This is the third and final session of this training, at least for this month. We will have more of these in the future for sure. Later on this month, the plan is to have a more of an advanced training. We've had several requests for that. I've already got one of our developers to agree to join me, so stay tuned for that information. That'll be coming out. But for today, we're doing a basic introduction to the new online Lutheran Service Builder. Again, my name is Peter Frank. I'm the Senior Manager of Marketing for Church Supplies here at Concordia Publishing House. I've been with the publishing house for about 11 years. I've been with Church Software for around 6, and I've been with Lutheran Service Builder for just over 2 years now. Lutheran Service Builder has a much longer life than that, so I joined late in the game, but early for this new version. So I've been in the planning process the whole way through with this team. My contact information is on the screen. Email is the best way to get a hold of me. My phone number is also a good way. I always check over there to make sure it's forwarding to voicemail, so don't try calling right now. We're all set, it looks like. All right. Let's see, I just had something come in that said lost my audio. Hopefully you can still hear me. Everything's looking good on my end. Oops. Let's see. All right. If anyone else is having trouble hearing me, go ahead and put that in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. I think we're in good shape. All right. Good, Kim. Thank you very much. All right. Well, let's go into some housekeeping items before we get too far. First off, I've got about 50 minutes planned for presentation. This is a kind of a one-way presentation where I will be sharing this information with you. We have too many people to have audio on the other line, so you're just here in listen-only mode, but you'll be able to learn from this and share information or questions in the chat. One of my colleagues, Jim from our support team, is on the line, or at least on the internet side of things, reviewing the questions. So he'll be able to answer as we go through. And we are saving 10 minutes for question and answers at the end. That completes this hour. Sometimes I go a little bit over on the presentation, and if I do that, I don't want to shortchange the questions, so I'll go past the hour if needed. But we're hoping that as you ask questions throughout, and that's my third item here, that Jim can answer in the chat and I can answer in the presentation, and all the questions will be answered. So that's our goal for today. Lastly, I mentioned before that I am recording this. We will be sharing this recording later on. So if you are one of those watching the recordings, I'm sorry you couldn't be here live, but you get the full benefit of learning all the same information, and you can reach out to us with questions after the fact. And that is true for all of you who are here live. This is a great opportunity for you to ask questions, but it is not the only opportunity. You'll have plenty of opportunities within the software to submit feedback or questions or reach out to our support team. A little bit about Lutheran Service Builder. I'm assuming, based on how the attendance has gone, that you are very familiar with Lutheran Service Builder. But if you're one of those who isn't, and you just want to know what this builder thing is, Lutheran Service Builder is now a web-based application, a program that allows churches to quickly and easily plan services, create custom bulletin interiors, export presentations and playlists, and conform with copyright requirements. So all of these kind of time-consuming tasks that are very necessary in the life of a church, we have created Lutheran Service Builder to save you time, make it more efficient, hopefully make it more consistent and professional looking from service to service. All right, so a little bit about moving online. Most of you are probably familiar that we were with the old version, Lutheran Service Builder 2. We moved online for a number of different reasons. The advantages to moving online, first off, is that it's multi-platform. So welcome, Mac users. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I know many of you have done things like parallels to get Lutheran Service Builder on your Mac. This makes it much easier. You can just go ahead and open up your browser and go to it. I know we have some people who switch between a PC and a Mac, one at home, one at work, and you can use the same tool in different places, different platforms. It also means it's multiple devices, which means if you've got a laptop that's not connected to the church network where your database was, you don't have to worry about that anymore. If you have a tablet, if that's your primary way of utilizing technology, I know my wife uses a Chromebook as a teacher. So there's a lot of different devices that people use today, and to limit it to PC meant that a lot of people had their Lutheran Service Builder computer. That was all they did on it. We've heard that time and time again. this allows you to use it on the device that you'd like. Now, I put phones on there because there is aspects of Lutheran Service Builder that are really easy and necessary to do on your phone. Service planning, looking up propers, that kind of thing, even reviewing hymns. You can do all of that on the phone. Now, there's some exceptions within here. We don't allow you to plan out the bulletin or the presentation from your phone because it's such a small device. I've got mine over here. It's really hard to do word processing on a screen this size. So that's why that part is not on there. And so that's a question we've had. I like to address that up front so that there's no confusion. When we say it's mobile compatible, that's the first part, the service planning mode. But otherwise, it works great on tablets, certainly on laptops, and then any kind of desktop. You also are now able to invite other users to work together on the same service. Now, when it was on the network, on your server, you could have multiple people looking at the same services, but it was all at the church. This allows you to do it, disconnected from the church server and still working it. And everybody gets their own username and password. And so if you are at a dual parish or you want to keep track of something separately, maybe pastor wants to keep the shut-in visits separate from the Sunday worship at the church, you have that option to do multiple locations, multiple different accounts tied together. So there's a lot in there. We usually work with the churches on your individual circumstances rather than showing all of that here. It'll just confuse people, but you can definitely do that. And I'll show you how to invite users to your primary account. It also allows us to leverage web functionality that we couldn't before. So we had a very good update system in Lutheran Service Builder 2, but it did require you to install those updates, and we tried to make it as easy as possible. It's even better now because all you have to do is wait for us to do it. And when we do it for everybody all at once. So it works out very well. You can get those instant updates. It also allows us to take advantage of some different functionality within web browsers that you might not be able to have on a PC. So all of that to say, we are confident that this move will be a good move for you to go online. I know there's been some hesitation by some churches. We'd love to hear why and what we can do to help resolve that. So please reach out to us if that's the case at your church. All right, so I always make assumptions at the beginning of my planning for every webinar, and this is what I'm assuming for this webinar. It's all about you. I am assuming that you understand the basics of liturgy. This is not a Worship 101 course. It's really a Builder 101. So taking what you know about worship and put it into Builder. And if you're familiar with Lutheran Service Builder 2, then this will be that much easier for you. But regardless, I'm assuming you're new to the online Lutheran Service Builder, and that's a pretty safe assumption since we just released it. But we do have a couple hundred churches who have either been using it for the last month since our early release for current customers, or been using it for 6 months when we started the field testing. So you are probably more than familiar with it if you fall in one of those categories, but you're still welcome to attend and learn more. But this is really meant for those who are going into it for the first time since we launched at the beginning of the month, or really the end of last month. I'm also assuming that you have a subscription or a free trial. Most of you probably have a subscription, and I'll ask about that in just a moment. But if not, you can go ahead and start a free trial right now. It'll give you access to everything except exporting, which obviously is a huge part of the software, but really not part of what we're covering today. That gives you the end of result. We'll show you all the tools to get to that point during the presentation. So if you haven't started a free trial yet, go ahead and start that free trial at lutheranservicebuilder.com. All right, so I always like to validate some assumptions. Some that I haven't stated are things I'm going to ask you in just a moment. So please tell me a little bit about yourself. First off, I'm going to ask if you can put your name and your church and your city and your state, your church's city and state, in the chat, because this will first off let me know who's here. I can see the list of names, but I don't know where you're coming from. And secondly, it'll help me make sure you know where the chat is, because that's where you'll submit questions as we go along. So go ahead and put your name, your city, and your state in there. Again, it's just to find out where the chat is, and good, we've got people going through there. So Bill and Brent and Stephen and Kristen and Kim and Maurice and Rachel and James and Mindy and Robin. Thank you all for joining here. We've got more coming, Tim and Kay and Carrie, and it continues to go on. So thank you very much. The next thing I'm going to ask you is to share your role. So and this will be a different kind of process. I'm going to ask a poll question, and I'd like you to answer, what is your primary role in the church? So let me launch that, and I still see the names coming in. Thank you, everyone. So if you can select the option, this is where you can go and click on it. Select the option that most closely describes your primary role at church. Ordained pastor, administrator, church musician, called church worker, or other. Sometimes I'll hear people say, well, I have multiple roles. Which one? Well, the primary role. You may be the pastor and work as the administrator if you're the only paid person on staff. Put pastor down for that. That's your primary role, what you're really there for. All right, so the results are pretty consistent with what we've had before. One of the sessions I had a lot more pastors than any of the other ones. So let me show what this looks like. I'll close this poll and I'll share that so you've got an idea. So we've got about a quarter of you are pastors, 60% are in the administrator role, and then we have musicians and other. All right, so looks like we've got at least one that can't seem to be able to access the chat. Barb, the fact that you put that in there is where the chat is. So that's why we do this, so you know exactly where to go put your questions in there. All right, very good. Well, let's move forward with the next question. I'll hide that. The next question is just, are you currently using Lutheran Service Builder in your congregation? And that's any version of it. It just helps me know who is brand new here. I know there's some people who are not using it all and are just checking this out because somebody asked them to. But it looks like, yeah, everybody here, we're at 100%. Oh, now we've got some no's. Very good. So high 90s are yes. In single digit percentages are no. So that's okay, good. That's kind of what I was expecting. All right, well, let's go ahead and move into our outline. This is pretty simple. We're gonna plan a service. And by that, I mean plan it at a high level. Then we're gonna get into the lower level where we select the individual worship elements. We're gonna choose how the formatting looks, edit the formatting to display it exactly how we want. And then we're going to export it. And like I said before, exporting is not available in the free trial, but if you're subscribed, you'll be able to export it, and really you get all the other steps up to that point with the free trial. So if you haven't started with the new version, don't worry, you can still follow along. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to switch my screen here, and you'll see here that it's taking up the full screen. This is a function of Google Chrome where you can save this almost like its own application on your computer. It really just opens up Chrome without your bookmarks or your URL or anything like that. It's just a fun little thing where you save page on desktop and open it as a new window. So that gives me the full screen. What I'm also going to do now, though, is zoom in, and that helps you see a little bit. You can do this as well on your computer if that helps you. But I know that you're watching this on your computer, probably in a smaller window. So this is the home page of the Lutheran Service Builder app or online application. It looks like a calendar, doesn't it? That's because it is. And we start with that. It's a little jarring for some people, but we do this because this is completely available online, whether you are signed in or signed up or not at all. And it's a great reference. We released this portion as Lutheran Calendar about 2 years ago, and it was really a precursor to this new online version. So if you are a new user, you can go, and normally it'll say sign in, or when you click on it, then you can sign up. I'm already logged in here, and so I get to see the search up at the top. I get to see the settings, all of that. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to move into August, and we're going to plan a service, and I'm going to go 2 weeks ahead. We're going to plan it for August 26th, the 14th Sunday after Pentecost. You can see down here in the very lower left-hand corner. Last Sunday in August, which is mind-boggling that this year is so far in already. All right, Pentecost 14 is the short name. When I click on that, it takes me to the propers view. Now, if I clicked on any other day, it would ask me what service do I want to plan. If I clicked on the 27th, actually have to click. Then it says, all right, here's the date, which holiday are we observing, and what's the name of that. This is how you would go and do like a funeral bulletin. But I'm going to cancel that. We're going to go back to the 14th, and you see clicking on it just takes me to the propers where I can see the readings, the psalm, there's the other readings, the introit, the collect, the gradual, the verse. All of that is available for you to review. And this is all mobile as well. So you can pull this up on your phone, and it's a real easy to use view. And if you're wanting to reference, maybe you're not near your computer and you want to see what the readings are coming up. Maybe you're stuck in an airport and you're wanting to do some advanced planning. I know a lot of pastors try to get ahead and see what's coming up. So that's a great use for this. But then you can go and click Plan this service. And this is the next step. So that's the top right corner. You click Plan this service, and it changes things a little bit. Now I scrolled down. I apparently hit the button on my keyboard. There we go. 14th Sunday after Pentecost on the left-hand side. Now this is going to be bold, and it'll be bold on the calendar view too, because I've started planning this service. And you can see here I've got a new navigation, propers for Pentecost 14, and service plan. Now the service plan is a high-level view of what's going to go on at that service. So the readings, which are obviously based on the lectionary, are right there. And by the way, you can set the lectionary to 3-year or 1 year, regardless of which your church uses. We've got it covered. So 3-year or 1 year, if you're using a different lectionary, we can't help you there because we're not sure what that is. These are the two that our churches use. So there's the readings, and if I click on one of those readings, I get a preview over here where I could change up the readings, or if I want to actually read it, I click this little arrow in the top right corner that shows or hides the preview. I click that, it slides in from the right, and then I can read the scripture. And I can X out to slide it back. I can also add readings if I want. And all I do to click add, I click add reading, and then I go and type it in. And so if I'm looking for John 1:1, click on that, enter. Not only will it allow me to just add that verse in, but it'll show me which days in the church year have readings associated with that verse. So you can see here, Christmas Day all the way through with the 3-year lectionary and the 1-year lectionary. That's one of the readings for Christmas. And for some of them, it might be 1 through 14, or it might be 1 through 18. I don't have to pick one of those. I can just pick John 1:1, or I could pick John 1 through 20, which isn't any of those. But it gives you a better understanding of how the lectionary uses those verses when they're coming up. So, and if I don't want to do it, I can just click the X next to it right there. Now, hymns work in very much the same way, although nothing is predefined for you. You see, it just says add hymns. While the hymn of the day is a proper, we don't assume that every church is going to sing that. It is nice, it ties in with the readings, but that's not necessary. But it shows up at the top of the list. So if you are regularly using the hymn of the day, you can click on that and add it in. And then you can see here we have hymns for the readings. These are suggested hymns based on these readings here for the lectionary. Then you have other suggested hymns that may not necessarily be based on the readings, but certainly are based on those same themes. And so while the hymns themselves may not reference those specific verses, they tie in very nicely. You can also go, and let me add a couple here. I just click on it and it adds it. Let me click hymn of the day, then add another hymn. I'll do all Christians, add another hymn, cloud of judgment, gather, and then my hope is built on nothing less. Very good. Now, if I wanted to, I could search by the hymn number. And so if I search by hymn 576, my hope is built on nothing less. If I search for 354, what is that? Arise, O Christian people. I can type that in. If I want to look for thy strong word, I could just type that in. There's a lot of different searches that you can do, and I'll show you that in a little bit, but it's a real powerful tool for getting the hymns that you're looking for. Now, in the same way that you could preview the readings, you can also preview the hymns. So if I click this little arrow in the top right, the Show High Preview, slides across the screen, shows me the text and all of the stanzas listed. Shows I can click on Melody, and that'll load that image up. There's all of that. And then I can click on Info. shows me the text and tune authors, copyright information, melody, related topics. Here's all those related scripture. So if I typed in any one of those scripture verses, Thy Strong Word would show up as a suggested hymn. Or if it's one of these services during the lectionary, 3-year A, 1-year lectionary, 3-year B, 3-year C, any of those days in the church year, it would show up. Now, anything that is blue is a link to be clicked, and you can search and find anything else related to that. So in this case, I clicked on Martin Franzman, the author. That shows up as a search up here. And so you can use this as a quick link to search, but it also is a training tool for how to use search, because you can see exactly how to type in those requests. And there are a lot of different requests. We'll get into that in a little bit. What I want to point out, though, and this is something that is new within this new version, but it's something we've had people ask for a long time, is that this hymn at the very end, the very last stanza, has a verse dedicated or stanza dedicated to the Trinity, which has the Trinity symbol. And it's not a requirement, but most churches for hymns with the Trinity symbol, or that discuss the Trinity in that stanza, will ask the congregation to stand for that. This was available in the hymnal since we released Lutheran Service Book in 2006, but it wasn't available in Builder until now. So we've heard you, we've answered. That works for both the text and the melody versions. Another thing that is quite interesting that we'll get to in a second is that the melody here, you see there's the first 4 stanzas, and then the last 2 stanzas are just text. It will, we have now in, what's the right word? Transcribed, engraved. There we go. Drew a blank for a second. We have now engraved all of those additional stanzas with the melody. And so you can pick that. We show the first 4 or 5 stanzas with the melody. If you have more than that, you'll still have the text, but that's an appropriate way to display it. But if you go down to 3 stanzas and only your first one is with the melody, or is only the first one is normally with the melody, these other 2 will now have the melody as well. So another fun new addition with Lutheran Service Builder. All right, let's go back here. After that, you can choose your order of service, and you don't have to. You have to decide this before you start planning your service, as long as you're doing bulletin or presentation exports. But you don't have to do it right now. It is always good. I know some churches, I've heard of at least one that does divine service setting 1 on the first Sunday and 2 on the second Sunday and 3. They just keep it that way. And then on Sundays with 5, they go with divine service setting 5. You can plan that out in advance if you want. You don't have to. But we're going to go ahead and choose divine service setting 1. And then you can mark in here what rites you want to use. And this is just a reference point to say, oh, don't forget there's a baptism this week, or this is confirmation. So you can add those rites in here. And then finally, the last part of service planning is that you can add notes to it. And these are whatever you want them to be. They don't affect the service plan at all. They are just there for reference. So you might want to have, pastor is preaching, or Pastor Smith is preaching. That's the example I use. In case you have 2 pastors, maybe you want to say the children's choir is singing, and plan that out. And so your music director might plan out all of the special music for the next 3 months, or maybe the whole year if you're really proactive. You can put that in there so that the pastor or the administrator knows that's coming well in advance. So it's just a nice tool, but again, it's the service plan at a high level. Plan out as many services you want, or as few as you want, and it just gives you that first step without digging into the bulletin. But that's what we're going to do next, is dig into the bulletin. So if you look at the top right, you have 3 links here: prepare bulletin, prepare presentation, and prepare playlist. That's hard to say those all in a row. Prepare bulletin is where we're going next. So I will click on prepare bulletin, and my screen will drastically change. I am now in a mode that is very similar to a word processor. In fact, because many of our users are Windows users, because Builder 2 is in Windows, we've kind of modeled the ribbon in Microsoft products. It's not exactly the same, and there's others that do this too. We certainly weren't the first, but it's familiar. And it's different than in Lutheran Service Builder 2, but you can see up here, up at the top, you have document, which allows you to choose your bulletin format. We'll talk about that in a bit, or your order of service. You can also modify these to be your own. So bulletin formats, certainly you can make your own, but even orders of service, as you change things in here and move them or delete or add to it, you can save that as your own custom order of service and use it again and again. You can also choose from any of the order of services that are included with Lutheran Service Book. Then you have insert, and insert allows you to add elements. And when you click on like insert hymn, you can go and place it within the service. So if you have a common element, maybe you have something like as you gather, or maybe, let's see here, what do we have? Maybe you just want to put in Luther's morning prayer at the beginning, and you can type that in. We have different aspects of the catechism there that are in there. You can do that. You can even change the caption by going in and clicking on it, or edit the sub caption by clicking on it. It's all in one place, and this is very different than Builder 2, because in Builder 2 you'd select which elements and then you'd go and change how they display. And here you do them all at the same time. So let's dig into that a little bit more. So maybe you don't want to display that title of caption, confession, absolution. That's the part of the service, but it might be something that you don't typically display. Well, you can go and click on that and choose to remove that. There we go. Just by clicking delete. I can also undo that. I can go and insert, oh yeah, we already talked about inserting things, but as you click on this, so here's a different hymn of invocation. When I click on that, I get the side menu, and each one of these is going to be a little bit different. If I click on a rubric there, here's a different element. This is the invocation. My ribbon changes up there. All of these are a little bit different and function different based on the type of element, but you see the final result as you're doing that. So let's choose a hymn first. So we planned out several hymns. Here you go. There's our service plan up at the top. Those are the 4 hymns we chose. So let's click on Thy Strong Word. That adds that hymn right then, and I can see, it's all the text, all 6 stanzas. Well, I want to do the melody, and I want that displayed. So there's the melody for the first 4, and then 5 and 6. And I'll say, well, let's cut out 2 and 3. Now those final stanzas, 5 and 6, flow up into the melody. The Trinity symbol's still there, but I get it ready to print. The melody and everything is there. The stanzas are next to each other. It's ready to go. So that makes that really easy. Let's go now here to this rubric. The sign of the cross may be made by all in remembrance of their baptism. Now, a lot of people know that, and it does take up space. You may not need to include that, so I can just go and delete it. I can also hit delete on my keyboard if I wanted to. All right, next we have confession. Sorry, invocation. Confession's down here. Let's go to confession. We move into confession, but it doesn't say that. But if I turn on the caption, there's confession of sins. And if I go down here, there's our absolution. But let's say vicar is serving today. Pastor has the week off, as he well deserves. And so we can't use absolution because he is not a called and ordained servant of Christ. Not yet, anyways. So there's a blue bar with a little arrow next to it that gives options. And if I click on the second option, that is the declaration of grace. And I can choose to show that, or that might be confusing. I can just turn off that caption, but it doesn't say he's a called and ordained servant, but it's just the declaration of grace that any Christian can share. So that gives you another tool within here for these different options when any one of those options may be more appropriate or just a different option for that service. So another example is here, the introit. You could do the introit, you could do the psalm, or you could do an entrance hymn, in which case that changes the type of element. You go and choose an entrance hymn. So you have a lot of different options there, but the value of what this new planning mode does is it gives you the initial service plans, kind of cuts out that middle step and takes you right to the end. So whereas before we had kind of 2 steps right in the middle, we've bumped them out and said, all right, take out that middle step. give me the high-level service plan, and give me the final bulletin format as I'm going through it. So as you go down here, you can continue to adjust it, but you don't ever have to go back and choose how it displays. So I hope that makes sense. I'd appreciate any questions if that's not clear. It's a lot to take in. It's quite a bit different. The end result is the same, and we believe this is a quicker way of getting there. Let's switch gears a little bit and show how this affects the presentation view. So if I go up to the top right and I click the drop down, I'm right now on Prepare Bulletin. I'll change it to Prepare Presentation. That'll take a second. It'll switch the screen, or it should. Let's see why it doesn't normally take that long. I wonder why that is. There we go. Yeah, sometimes when I'm presenting online, it takes me a little bit longer. The internet is slower because I'm streaming live, and I can hear my computer running the whole time, which I typically don't hear, which means that a lot of my CPU is being used by this streaming, but normally it doesn't take this long. So I do apologize for the wait, but I do see there are questions coming through here, and that's great. I appreciate that. All right, there we go. Let's switch it to Prepare Presentation, and that's loading. So looks like there's just a little bit of a hiccup there. Thank you for your patience. That'll load in just a moment. I can see it on the background side of things getting through there. But if you do have questions as we go, please go ahead and submit it. Let's see, where did you click to change the headings? You just click the headings themselves. I'll show you that in a moment. My goodness, I'm gonna refresh this real quick because that never takes that long. Yeah, I don't know if the audio is coming across, but my computer is definitely working hard. So that is on my end and not on the builder end. There we go. So this is the presentation mode, and it looks a little bit different than before, not drastically different, but those same concepts that we have for bulletin apply here. So you see on the left, when I click on one of these, this is the final slide. This is what it looks like if I were to export it right now. And I've added that element. The things I've added on the bulletin side come up here. Even there under Thy Strong Word, you see my stanza selection is showing. We go from 1 to 4 to 5, and the fact that I chose melody is showing. Now I can still go in here and change this to text and override that. And for presentations, that's generally a better way of going. But the choices that I made before are there. So now let's go over here to Confession of Sins, then Declaration of Grace. You see, I still have this same drop down between absolution and declaration of grace, and I can change it on there. So that same concept still applies. You're selecting the option and changing the formatting as you go. Now the formatting is a little bit different because it's saying, do you want to show that caption on the first slide, on a separate slide? If I click separate, you'll see, all right, now we're moving to absolution, there it is. Or not show it at all. I can click none and we just go right into the next thing. Or you could show it on all, which in this case, it only fits on one slide. But if it was on 2 slides, it would show them on both. Actually, if we go up here to Confession of Sins, you can see that. So if I go to first, it just goes from Confession of Sins to this. If I switch it to all, it'll be on the next one too. So different options because presentations are different than bulletins, but the same concepts apply. And if I want to go and say, all right, after absolution, I want to insert, well, there's already him there. I want to insert a prayer. I click Insert Prayer, and right after that, and a new slide is generated, and then I can go and select a prayer of thanksgiving. So all of the tools work in the same way, but they work slightly different in terms of appearance because it's a different way of presenting it. All right, the next thing I want to show, and just briefly before we get into formats, is the playlist view. So you can go and prepare a playlist. Now, playlists are not necessarily a new thing in Builder, but we wanted to say what the end result was more than the name. So this is Concordia Organist. It's a separate subscription. Not a lot of people are using it. It's about a quarter of our users, a little bit less than that, but it's still a good number. And so if you have a congregation that doesn't have an organist every Sunday, or maybe any Sunday, or if you want to play music for special events that your organist can't be at, this is the tool for you. It allows you to export a playlist of music. It downloads MP3 files in the exact format and order that you need them. So like here on the left-hand side, this is the service we've been working at. Not everything is sung. You're not singing Luther's morning prayer, although we have some excellent music to go along with it. But you are singing Thy Strong Word. And you are singing the next hymn, Lord, help us ever to retain. And then the Kyrie and Gloria in Excelsis. Each one of these that you want to sing, you can. Now, you may say, all right, the Kyrie we're not going to sing. Just uncheck include, and it won't be part of the export, even though it could be. You click include, it gets bold, it'll be part of the download. So when you download these files, you get a listing, and in fact, we go to document, export a zip file. I'll show you what that looks like. It's a big file. It usually takes a little while to download, and now that I've done that, maybe I regret doing it because it might slow down my computer a little bit. But it gives you a zip file of all the MP3s, and then you can plug them into the computer that is connected to your audio. Here we go. You can download it to a device like an iPad and share it, plug that into the audio. You could put it on a CD if that's the way you want to do things. But see, let's go ahead. I'll close up all my excess folders. But see, it gives you this listing of individual files, including the different verses or stanzas. And so, for example, like Thy Strong Word, it formatted it in 4 stanzas because we're doing 1, 4, 5, 6. It didn't give you all 3 of them. So it really works out well as a replacement for an organist in those times when you need that. Now, I don't want to hear you say, oh, well, we don't need our organist anymore. Let's get rid of him or her and just get Concordia Organist. It's not the same, but it is a possible alternative. All right, so like I said, that's an additional fee. It's only for those who need it, but there's a lot of good use cases for it. So that's playlists. What I'm going to do is shift gears now. Well, let me shift back to the bulletin view for right now and talk about some of the options that are available for really getting down to formatted and custom services. So you know that we made several changes here. We added the morning prayer. We removed a rubric right before by the invocation. I can go ahead and save this as my custom divine service. So I'm doing the fake Resurrection Lutheran Church, and we'll call it DS1 custom divine service 71 custom. Save that. That is my new order of service. So now the next time I go to plan a service, I'll go back to the calendar. We'll look in September. If I go to this one here, September 2nd, and I go to plan this service, now when I go to orders of service, that is one of those options for me. Now it's going to be at the bottom. Uncategorized is what we call it. I can also search for it. If I search for resurrection, it comes up. That will be my next that will be my order of service for that. And when I go to prepare bulletin, you'll notice that the things that were kind of custom or unique to the service, like the hymns, aren't pre-selected. But things like Luther's morning prayer are. The rubric that I deleted is still deleted. Anything that I would move is still moved. But the things that are unique to that day in the church year are removed and allow me to plug in the things that are appropriate for this day in the church year. All right, so that's a little bit different than you might have seen before. Not too different, but the main thing I want to show is you can create your own custom orders of service. Now, as you're preparing a bulletin, you also have the bulletin format, and that's up here under document, and we have different ones that are out of the box. So creative worship is one of them. It's very much a aerial based format. You can see it there. Looks a little bit different, but the content is the same. If I go to large print, It looks a little bit different. The content's the same. Actually, it looks a lot different. It's very large. That's for printing out large print bulletins. All right, so up here under the settings cog is how you get to bulletin formats. And when you click on that, so I should go slower. Settings cog, oops. Bulletin formats. There's a few other things here that I want to mention while we're talking about this. There's the quick link to calendar, a quick link to search, my worship resources. We'll look at that in just a moment. Import from LSBX files. There's bulletin formats, presentation formats, and account settings. So this is where you go for some of the more management type of things. But bulletin formats will take over your screen, show you the named formats you have. You can create categories. You can create new formats based on different things. So if I go to a new one based on the default, I can go ahead and type in webinar example. And I can use this again and again. It's based off of my default one, whereas my, like here, Reformation Lutheran Standard is one I put together the other day. So webinar example, maybe I want to do something quite a bit different. Let's go in here and choose Tahoma as my body font. And for my heading font, let's use, Verdana and Tahoma are pretty similar. There's some slight differences. So we'll do that and make it bold and make it 22. You see, as I make those changes, it updates it there. And I have all sorts of different styles that I can do for the different sections. Now, under layout is my page. So this is 8.5 by 11 portrait. Well, maybe I am using 8.5 by 11, but it's landscape, and I fold them in half. So it shows that format, what fits on an individual page, even if you're printing it out on two pages on one sheet of paper. And margins and other things are there too. Content says, all right, never show the headings. We don't need the headings. We don't need the rubrics. In fact, for hymns, we don't even need to show the caption. We're just singing it. Nobody needs to know what it is. You can just sing it. I don't recommend that necessarily, but I wanted to show the flexibility that you have. You're really looking at these three things: style, layout, content. How is the information displayed? First off, from a visual style, fonts and colors and formatting. From a layout, where is it being placed? What size paper? And then from a content, do we display it? Do we not? What mass changes can we make? So maybe all hymns should always have the melody. Now, maybe they should never. Maybe they just need to have the caption. Maybe the name doesn't need to be there, but the role does, hymn of invocation. That's kind of not great, but you can say in here, hashtag reference. Actually, hashtag PG, hashtag. Gotta put in that last hashtag. So there you go. You can say LSB 655. So you have a number of different options for how it's displayed, and then you can save this and reuse it time and time again. Now, presentation formats are almost identical in their nature, just like it is with that presentation view. It's, of course, just a different medium. So I can click on Basic and see a PowerPoint type template, presentation template. Here's an example that I put together. It's not a beautiful example, but I changed the size, I changed the background color, I changed the color of the individual elements. I can go in, if I wanted to change body size to be 48, I could do that, and I can see the preview right there. So that's the difference between presentation formats and bulletin formats. And I can go into much more detail, but I'll do that in an advanced training session because we're already at about 45 minutes in. All right, so that is those different formats. I'm gonna go and show you here under the presentation view how to change it. All you do is what I did before, document, format, but there's my webinar example. And my screen size changes my available space, my font does. You can see there, my hymn went from showing large print before I had it showing the melody, it just shows text because that's what I put in there. All right, so that's a good quick overview of formats. Let's go into search. I showed you a little bit already, but if I click on the settings cog and I go to search, it gives me our global search. And you'll see there on the left-hand side, you have how to search or narrow your search. Those are teaching you how to use the search tool. So let's click on Mighty Fortress. I'm just searching for a phrase. A mighty fortress is our God comes up, but then also hymns that have those words in it. And you can get a little preview of why it came up. But I could go and say, all right, show me author Martin Luther. And I'm putting that in quotes, so it's exactly Martin Luther. If I just did Martin, it would still work, but I'd get Martin Luther, Martin Obitz, Martin Franzmann, like before. So I put it in quotes to only get Martin Luther. And then I may want to say, all right, hashtag hymns. Only show me hymns from Martin. And also only show topics Easter. One hymn. If I'm looking for an Easter hymn written by Martin Luther, that's how I'd search for it, and I find it. So search is a very powerful tool, but if you are one of the congregations that doesn't use the service plan, doesn't use the bulletin or PowerPoint or presentation format, just wants to get to the information, copy it out, paste it into your template, this is where you go. You go to search, you find the information, and then you go down here and say export it to a docx file. And I get a single file for that single hymn. And it shows up just as I have it displayed here, as text with those stanzas chosen. All right, does that make sense? I'm going to pause here for a second, mainly because I need to take a drink of coffee, but I want to let this sink in. There's a lot that we just covered in a short amount of time. All right, next up, I want to show a little bit about my worship resources. So I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to go back to my bulletin format. Prepare bulletin. Sorry, not bulletin formats, prepare bulletin. Actually, I'm already here. If I scroll down and get to the prayer of the church, all it does is give me that caption, prayer of the church. That's not part of the liturgy. The fact that there are prayers is part of the liturgy, but the specifics are not. Now, we have, in partnership with LCMS, let me go to my screen here, have provided prayer of the church through a thing called Let Us Pray. So if you go to LutheranServiceBuilder.com, it'll take you to our new website. All the way at the bottom, and I'll explain why in a second, there's a Downloads tab. When you click, or Downloads link, when you click Downloads, you can get to Let Us Pray files for pretty much every day in the church here. Now, we update these as they put them out. They put them out as Word documents. We convert them to our file format and put them out there for free because they give them for free. And we put them in a zip file so that it doesn't seem like it's a spam file or a dangerous file. The reason we put this all the way down in the footer where nobody else can see it, except for people who look in the footer, is because if you sign up to receive email notifications, we'll tell you when the files are updated. You don't have to go checking for it constantly. So if I downloaded 3-year, I get a new one, or sorry, 3-year lectionary for August 26th. And some of these will be the same, some of them will be different. I get what's called an LSBX file. And I can go, and I've already saved this to my desktop, I can go to the settings and go to import from LSBX file and click, oh, that one was August 19th. I can go and load that in. We'll show what that looks like when I load that in. August 19th, 2018, great. Continue, and it's there. This is August 26th. I put that in before. So if I click here, prayer of the church, it says, hey, don't forget to insert a prayer. So I'll go to insert common element or element, click right below that, and then say, I shouldn't have camp mode, August 26th. And of course, now that's not showing up. Maybe I meant to do insert prayer. I think I did put it in. I'll show you how you can find out for sure if it's not coming up in search. Yeah. I'll go up here to settings, my worship resources. Should be under my common elements. August 28th. That's why. Sorry about that. I knew I had it in there, and that's 2016 too. It's the old one. All right, well, sorry about that. I was jumping ahead. Either way, you can see what it's in there for. So August 28th, 2016, I'm assuming if I had just typed in August, it would have worked out much better for me. Let's try that here. So there's my element. If I go in here and type in August, there we go, results for little tree elements. It's always good when I figure out the mistake while you're here. I often figure it out after the fact, but yeah, here we go. Let's just do this August 19th, 2018 one to show that the prayer of the church gets put in here. This is not something that's in Builder right now. You upload those files and it goes under My Worship Resources under Common Elements. And then you can modify them however you want. So you can go in here and if you wanted to type out what was in there, you could say at Resurrection Lutheran Church and save that. You can also create your own elements, and they can not just be common elements, they could be hymns or prayers, copyright holders, psalm tones, templates. A new fun thing is templates. We're going to be doing some stuff on this on our blog, but a new template where you can add a responsorial. So you can say the leader says this and the people say this, add people, and then here's the content such as the reading. So hashtag content, and then you can have another responsorial, and then whatever you surround with that, it shows in that way. So we'll cover that in more detailed trainings. I'm already at my 50 minutes, but I just wanted to show this to you. I also want to show you how my liturgies look. Here's my custom order of service that we put together today. Oops, it just takes a little while to load. So this looks familiar, I'm sure. This looks a little bit more like Builder 2, except this is for your template that you would use time and time again. All right, I'm going over on time, but I'm pretty close. So there's a lot that we covered. If you have questions, please go ahead and ask them. And I see you you're filling up my queue, which is fantastic. While you continue to do that, I just want to remind you, you can start your free trial at LutheranServiceBuilder.com. But if you are ready to get moving, you're still on Lutheran Service Builder 2, or maybe you're one of those who is not using it at all right now, the way to get started with this new online version is to set up a time to talk with a software consultant. And I will put this link in there and tell you a little bit about what this is. So let me put this in the chat for everyone. Oh, I clicked it twice. All right, this is where this will take you to. Enter in your email address. It'll open up a calendar. Start booking a time. Let's see here. You can, once it loads, it says, all right, here's some available days. I'm going to talk with a software consultant. You got your time zone and everything. You pick the time, fill out the form, and you get added to their schedule. Now, the software consultants are a team of people that help advise you on which software works best. In this case, we already know what we're looking for, but it's Lutheran Service Builder. And during that conversation, they'll send you a new license agreement for this. They'll align your subscription dates if needed. So if you have Builder starting one time and hymn license starting another time and organist starting another time, we'll get it all on the same date. It makes it easier for everybody involved. We'll turn on access to the new online builder for you, and we'll send you instructions for how to get started. You can upload your Builder 2 database to this new version, so you won't lose anything in the transition. You'll bring it all with you. It'll be ready to go. So you'll get all those instructions from them, and it also gives you a chance to specifically ask any questions that you have. So we're doing it this way primarily because we have thousands of customers, and we don't want you to say, hey, just call the phone line, sit on hold until we're ready to talk to you, because everybody else is calling us too. It creates a nice orderly line so that you know when you can convert. And we've had some concerns about, well, I don't have time for a phone call. This should only take 10 minutes, 15 at the max, unless you have a lot of questions. We book it for 15 minutes. So if you have a lot of questions, we'll probably share the call with the support team and they'll help you out. But it's not that big of a deal. It just creates a nice orderly line so nobody is trying to, it's like at the end of a baseball game or something when you're all trying to leave the stadium at once. It would be a lot more efficient to just go through one at a time through the door as opposed to trying to everybody get out of the exit. So that's why we're doing it this way. let me go ahead and put my contact information back up on the screen, as well as our software consultants, which you can reach out to. And again, the link which I put in the chat is the best way. This is the way we're going to refer you to. So if you email me, as some people have said, and say, I don't want to talk to a software consultant, I just want to get started, well, I'm going to ask that you speak with a software consultant. They're the ones that get you set up. So that's the way to move forward. Go ahead and click on the link and sign up for a time if you haven't already. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at our queue. So let's see here. We've got a lot that are in play. Jim has been able to answer a good number of those questions. Let me go up to the top, kind of work my way down. All right, so which is the first unanswered question? And some of these, even if you asked it a while ago, Jim may have left it unanswered because he knew I was going to answer it. All right, let's see here. Is the suggested hymn list in Lutheran Service Builder for each Sunday the same in the hymn selection guide? It hasn't always been, and I don't want to say that it is right now, other than to say that we've been working to align them both. And so the suggested hymns previously were coming from a different source than the hymn selection guide. So we are kind of merging those together and creating a new cohesive one. I believe that'll officially take place with this new 2019 or 2018 to 2019 worship planning guide, but it won't necessarily be the same as it was before right now. So that is an approach that we're taking to keep things consistent, but we're kind of fixing both of them. So that is a very good question. Thank you for that, Tim. Is that a suitable section to add a sermon outline? I'm assuming you mean the notes, and I think Jim asked that too. What were you referring to, Brent? Yes, the sermon outline would be, you could put that into the notes. Let me jump back to that real quick under service plan, just to make sure we're all talking about the same thing. You see here notes where like Pastor Smith is preaching, children's choir singing. You can make that as long as you need to put what you're going in. So yeah, I would say a sermon outline is a great place for, or that's a great place for it. All right, can you display music notes with the introit? This question is coming from Jim. Jim, let me get down to the introit. All right, when you click on the introit, your ribbon up here will allow you to put the psalm tone in there. So it's as it's an intro, it doesn't have a melody across all the way, but I think that's what you're asking there for the music notes. You've got these different psalm tones available here. All right. Where did you click to change the headings? I think I answered this before, Jan, but I'll just let you know one more time. Actually, I think I removed most of the headings already. There's a difference between headings and captions, so I want to clarify that. I may have chosen under this. Yeah, it looks like I've chosen to not have headings. Headings are the big parts of the service, and that is part of my bulletin format. But captions, these right here, you can just double click on them and change it to Luther's morning prayer, something like that. Subcaptions are on the right-hand side and are formatted differently. So that's how you get to that. So headings, the big ones, are under bulletin formats, and basically you choose to display or not display them, or they could be custom elements. All right, let's see, 2 questions. Rodney, I think you've got those answered. We'll get to them. All right. Barb is asking, where it has A to indicate the assistant speaks, how do you change that to a P? So let's go in here. So you see like P here. These are coming straight from the bulletin. But if you are going and creating your own custom order of service, these are already P. So it's probably a bad example. I'm not sure. Oh, let's go to absolution, I believe, as we click on it, yeah, that's still showing P, Declaration of Grace. So under my worship resources, we'll go to my liturgies. You could create your own under my common elements, but I'm going to go to my liturgies first because I can go in here and directly edit those. So I know this is not exactly what you asked for, but if I go here to Declaration of Grace, double click on it, I could go and change this to L or switch that to P. So this is where you'd go under my custom elements, because what you put under, when you're just selecting it outside of my worship resources, the custom parts, you're just getting what's in the service book. But you can take those and make your own or change them in here. So my worship resources, which is more of our advanced tools, we'll be getting into that some more later on in the month. All right, next up, Rodney asked this question, but I'm going to answer it for the benefit of everybody. Will my custom LSB liturgies be able to be carried into online, to the online version, or will I need to create them? They will upload with your database, so they should be waiting for you when you upload it. And then Rodney also said, how will creative worship elements be imported to or added to the service plan? That is with LSBX files, just like in the current builder, or in the old builder, I should say. This is the current builder. You go and import from LSBX files. Now for that and Let Us Pray, that is where we're at today. But we've got plans to make that integration even smoother and easier in the coming months. But we wanted to get this out first rather than waiting to release Builder until that was done. So there's more coming with Creative Worship and Let Us Pray. Those are an important part of our long-term strategy with Builder. So just keep an eye out for that. All right, that question was answered, so I'm going to keep moving forward. Let's see, the 6 stanzas did not show the triangle when you transferred it to the slide. Thank you for bringing that out, Jan. That is a correct thing that I forgot to clarify. The triangle is only available in the bulletin export or within the software as you're viewing it. But the way that slides work with those graphics, there's not a way that we can consistently do it and have it meet with the format. So we're still considering options for that. It's a challenge for us based on the tool, so we don't have that in there right now. So stay tuned as we try to figure out a way to do that, because the things that we have tried didn't work well. So thanks for clarifying that. It is the bulletin view where this triangle, the Trinity triangle, is included. All right, these are answered, so I'm going to skip over these. Man, it's really good having Jim on the line to answer those. Thank you, Jim, for being here. Is Creative Worship the one from CPH that we usually get on a disc? Yes, you usually get on a disc. We're moving to an online version so you get it quicker and don't have to pay for shipping or anything like that, but the content is still the same. So yes, that is what Creative Worship is. Kristen asks, is there a list of hashtags somewhere? And I'm glad you asked that question, because I forgot to mention one of the key parts of Lutheran Service Builder is our information center. And so you can go down here to I in the lower right hand corner and search our help articles. So if we search for templates, and we're adding new things all the time, I can go to my templates and let me see where we're at today with that. Yep, there are the hashtags there. So hashtag content, hashtag book, chapter cardinal, chapter ordinal, so spells out the chapter. So this is great, especially for readings, and why we have book, chapter, cardinal, chapter ordinal. It's a mouthful, because you can have different templates surrounding the readings. So not just for templates though, you can use our help center for all sorts of things. This is also where you can go and send a message to our support team or get the phone number to call in. So that I in the lower right hand corner, that blue I for information center, is very helpful. So thank you for asking that, Kristen. All right, these have been answered, so I'll continue to move down just to make sure hopefully all of the questions people have answered in some way, shape, or form. Oh, Brent, I just see your note now, never mind. All right, that's okay. Susan asked, how do you switch? I've been using LSB all along, how do I switch? I answered that. That again is setting up a conversation with a software consultant here. All right. What is the cost of the online version compared to the previous version? David, I'm glad you asked that. There is no difference in price. It is exactly the same. We had a price increase last year in 2017 for Builder 2. That price stays consistent all the way through to the end of 2019, where we are planning a slight increase at that time too. So anybody who moves to the new online version, we just change the dates on your subscription. We may prorate it a little bit depending on if we have to move dates. If you just have a subscription to Builder, or if you have Builder and another subscription like Hymn License and the dates are the same, then there's no invoicing or crediting that happens. But anything that might be a transaction like an invoice or a credit will only be moving dates around, but the totals stay the same. So what you've budgeted will continue to be fine until the very end of 2019. So that is one thing. We did not want to make this a price competition between our two versions. They're exactly the same. So Kay, that kind of answers your next question. I'm glad I answered that. Kay asked, if we switch to online, do we get credit for the time left on our current LSB and HIM licenses? Absolutely, yep. If they're on the same schedule, nothing really changes from your payments. You'll get the invoice at the same time at renewal. If they're different dates, then that will change. But yeah, absolutely, it's essentially the same subscription. It's just a different license agreement, different application, same dollars. All right, Maurice asked this and got the answer, but I want to answer this for everybody. Maurice said, will LSB2 become obsolete in the future? The answer is yes, but not yet. It'll be a while. We are not going to make it obsolete until we have very few customers left. But we are not going to be actively developing for it. So we will continue to support it. We will continue to answer questions about it, help people install it. We are not accepting new customers on LSB2 anymore. That ship has sailed. The only way that new people can join is on the new online version. But we're grandfathering in all our current users. So you can still continue to use it if you prefer that, if you don't have internet at the church. I'm guessing that for those of you who don't have internet at the church, you're not here today because you're on the internet right now. But we are going to continue supporting it as long as we have customers. Now, LSB1, which really became obsolete back in 2008 with the release of 2, 10 years ago, we are ending support for that. We only have a handful of customers left on that. There's some people who prefer it. We've taken their feedback and tried to apply it in the new version. So rather than supporting 3 versions of Builder, we're only supporting this version that we will continue to actively update and add new features, and Builder 2. All right, let's see. Bill's asking, in the liturgy, can you have the pastor speak the part and the congregation sing the response instead of both singing or chanting? Yes, there are some of those in there already, and for the ones that you want to add, that's what templates is for, is to be able to create those yourself. And so, depending on which you're looking for, you might already be able to find it, but it does allow you to choose different templates and responsorials for that in different formats. So Bill, to answer your question, yes, that's what it's there for, although not all the content is available because we've had a lot of requests for different ones. We focused on what's in Service Book right now. So I believe it's Divine Service setting 3, maybe 4, where there's some more of that in there. But yes. All right, Jan, thank you for your comment about this being excellent. I appreciate that. All right, I think that just about does it. Yeah, text on the pastor, melody for the congregation. Bill just clarified that. And since that's the last question, I think I've got a chance to go and look at that briefly. This is probably dangerous to do this on the fly because I don't remember exactly where we have more of those. But I want to show templates right now because we have a minute. And let's see, Old Testament reading. Standard, here's the templates up there for things that can be surrounded. And it doesn't look like we've got those there. Yeah, that surrounds it. So I must be wrong about which divine service that is. But regardless, let me go back into my worship resources, into my templates. You can create your own, and you can do things like add in any sort of music. Now this takes you into our prepare music engraving. So you'd have to have the image from somewhere. So if it's from a different source and you're scanning it in, or maybe you've saved the image from some other digital file and you have the rights to use that, that puts it in here. We're going to continue to look at different ways to improve this experience, but at the very least, this now allows you to add those responsorials and append them to either before and or after the content itself. So yeah, again, we're going to get into more of this with the advanced training, but at least for right now, I can point you in the right direction. And do keep an eye out for your emails. Oh, and the last thing, yeah, Terry said, when you export bulletins, are they still docx? I should have shown that before. I mentioned that that was not a key part of the presentation, but I should have still shown that. Under Documents, you go to Export, and you have three options: docx files, which is Terry's asking about, or rich text formats, which works better in some different processors, or HTML files. And that's got some benefit, but really if you wanted to share this on your website in the right formatting, you can do that, upload that file to your website and reference it. So just know that's where you would go. But otherwise, yeah, docx is still supported, as is RTF. That's another option. So we'll explore more on the presentation side. Right now, PowerPoint is our option. MediaShout 6 is in the works as well. And then we'll look at other options from there. All right, I think I got everything covered. That is a ton of information at once, but I do want to thank you for signing up or for attending and watching this, and remind you, please sign up for the new version if you haven't already at this link provided. But with that, I will go ahead and say have a great rest of the day. Thanks for coming.